The anti-ICE protests that Democrats helped organize and fund are starting to backfire. At some of these demonstrations, parents are bringing their children into chaotic situations, and many people are beginning to notice how extreme this movement has become. The strategy looks familiar: create disruption, draw attention through shock, and then shield the message behind kids instead of taking responsibility. At the same time, critics argue that Democrats have shifted their focus toward shaping children's beliefs, pushing them toward a borderless, collectivist worldview. It's not subtle either. Videos circulating online have sparked outrage and disbelief. One in particular is hard to watch. If you follow this channel, you know the routine. Support the content if you want to keep seeing more of it. To push their open border agenda, protesters have even recreated a famous image of U.S. Marines raising the American flag, a moment tied to real sacrifice and national pride. Instead of honoring that history, the reenactment comes off as shallow performance. These activists argue that America has no culture, no morals, and nothing worth celebrating. Using those claims to justify their goals. The contradiction is hard to ignore. One especially alarming clip comes from Minneapolis. A mother posted on TikTok saying she planned to bring her 18-month-old child to a volatile ICE protest during freezing temperatures, nearly 10 degrees below zero. For many viewers, that moment captured just how far this movement is willing to go. This moment highlights what critics describe as a growing crisis of judgment on the political left. A widely shared caption read, "My child is no more important than anyone else's child." For many people, that idea is deeply confusing. Parents naturally place their children first. It's a basic part of human behavior. A worldview that rejects this instinct clashes with how most people understand responsibility and care. What makes the situation more troubling is how moral performance appears to override common sense. Bringing a toddler into dangerous conditions, including freezing temperatures and volatile demonstrations, puts children at risk. In some protests, individuals damaged cars as drivers tried to leave, prompting law enforcement to respond with crowd control measures like pepper balls and tear gas. During one ICE protest in Minneapolis, a 7-year-old child was reportedly exposed to tear gas, raising serious concerns about adult decisions and child safety. Critics argue that Democratic activists are using children's innocence to advance extreme political goals.
This is my daughter's middle school. Being allowed to protest ICE agents, disrupting traffic, having everyone home. I'm pulling my child from school today. This is fucking unbelievable. I'm here to pull my child from the school right now. I'm here to pull Remington Gates from the school district.
Do you want to withdraw?
Yep. This is unbelievable. I can't believe my kid is in this environment right now.
The willingness to place kids in harm's way to spark emotional reactions alarms many observers. They also point out that because progressive groups hold strong influence in schools, students across the country have been encouraged to walk out and protest ICE. What follows looks less like peaceful demonstration and more like uncontrolled disorder. According to critics, this movement isn't really about immigration enforcement. Instead, it conditions young people to rely on the emotional rush of crowd behavior, where restraint disappears and chaos feels empowering. It's not about calm advocacy or meaningful reform. During one of these high school protests, an elderly Asian man standing nearby was reportedly robbed, underscoring how quickly these situations can spiral out of control. What many people find most troubling is how the administration appears to encourage protests and unrest within schools and colleges. At the same time, online posts are exposing serious academic failures across these institutions.
Kindergartners, I want to say too that kindergartners are natural social justice warriors. Like I mentioned before, I see this all the time on the playground. That's unfair. And this is why it's unfair. This is the reasons that it's unfair. And I think if we just build upon the mindset of a kindergartner, that it's fantastic. You can get them to do fabulous things in the social justice realm.
America's education system is clearly struggling. Many students can't read well, can't write clearly, and fall behind in math. Instead of mastering basic skills, critics argue they're being filled with radical political ideas and trained to become activists rather than capable adults. This problem showed up clearly at a high school in my hometown. Reading proficiency there was just 24%, math proficiency only 21%, yet the graduation rate stood at 83%. That contradiction raises serious questions. When reading, writing, and math are no longer firm requirements, the value of a diploma drops fast. Surviving years of political messaging seems to matter more than actual learning, but this approach is running into resistance. Parents push back when schools put ideology ahead of their children's safety and education. One furious mother stormed into her child's high school.
Do you believe that people should have to be United States citizens in order to vote in Arizona's elections?
I'm representing an organization and I'm speaking to this bill. I've shared those sentiments.
Does the organization you're here representing believe that people should have to be United States citizens in order to vote in Arizona's elections?
That's a question that I'd have to go back for that very specific question to get the response because I don't know.
Mr. Chair, that's not an answer.
It is not.
My name is Jody Lee, and I'm here on behalf of Lucha.
Does Lucha believe that people should have to be citizens of the United States in order to vote in Arizona's elections?
I believe that I don't have an answer from that directly from Lucha. And I think certainly they believe all taxpayers should have access to democracy.
And pulled them out after learning students were allowed to leave class to protest. Her reaction reflects a wider concern that schools crossed a line. Supporting that parent makes sense to many viewers. Protesting has consequences, and it requires personal responsibility. Children shouldn't be released during school hours to form crowds and cause disruption. Schools should have drawn a clear boundary, leave the building, face suspension. Students still have the right to protest on their own time, but official support from schools shows how deeply political these institutions have become. Critics argue this isn't limited to high schools. Teenagers close to adulthood are being exposed to aggressive scenes, while even younger children from kindergarten down are being targeted with the same ideological messaging. To many parents, that feels less like education and more like indoctrination. Because college students are voters, and many have spent years immersed in left-leaning ideas, Charlie Kirk chose to speak directly to them. He didn't tell them what to believe or how to feel. Instead, he challenged their assumptions, offered a different perspective, and repeatedly encouraged them to think for themselves and reach their own conclusions. That approach stands in sharp contrast to what critics say is happening in many classrooms today. According to those critics, educators aren't teaching students how to think, but what to think.
That was quite a word salad. People who are non-citizens who are working in Arizona, whether they're here legally or illegally, pay taxes. Does Lucha believe that non-citizens should be able to vote in Arizona just because they pay taxes?
I don't feel comfortable making a definitive statement on behalf of the organization.
Hi, sorry, Caitlin Contreras with the ACLU.
Is it the position of the ACLU that people should have to be U.S. citizens in order to vote in Arizona's elections?
It is the ACLU's position that voting should be fair and accessible and to everyone who is eligible.
That would be a U.S. citizen.
They shape morals, values, and beliefs based on institutional priorities rather than family guidance. Taking advantage of young, impressionable minds is viewed as one of the most serious lines that can be crossed. Many parents believe Democrats still haven't learned from their loss in the 2024 election that targeting children sparks fierce backlash. Some argue this strategy goes back even further. After Donald's 2020 defeat, Democratic leaders were determined to prevent him from ever challenging them again. That, critics claim, explains the aggressive organizing around immigration and ICE. Large sums were spent to bring in millions of future voters expected to support the party. When defied expectations and won again, those same activists were mobilized to protect that long-term investment. At this point, critics say the strategy is no longer hidden. One final video, they argue, makes that unmistakably clear. To supporters of this view, the issue feels existential. People from unstable countries were brought in under conditions so difficult that lifelong government support looks appealing. Critics then ask an obvious question. Who are those individuals more likely to vote for? Leaders promising expanded benefits, or those pushing limits on government aid? Many parents believe it's time for accountability and awareness. They hope more families will do what one mother did by removing her child from what she saw as a politically driven learning environment. As always, share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video meaningful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.